Which shoe is better to hoop in? The Nike PG6 or the Adidas Dame 8? Today we're putting the newest models from Paul George and Damian Lillard's signature shoe lines head to head to see how they compare. So before we get more into the performance breakdown, I just want to touch on some of the basics. So we are dealing with the same price range today between these shoes, which is always nice. The Nike PG6 is going to retail for $110. That is keeping the same price from last year's model. But the Dame 8s did get a $10 price jump, and now they're going to retail for $120. But I mean, still, both of these shoes are on the cheaper side for a signature line. That's always going to help out the wallet. So looking at the PG6 first, I feel like Nike did spice this up a little bit more than last year's PG5 model, which was pretty simple but still an excellent performing shoe. But I really do like the reverse swoosh on the upper for these. Kind of shows up in gold on this colorway, and then just below that on the midsole you can actually see like the player logo for Paul George kind of running up the side, kind of onto the side of that midsole from the bottom of the shoe. I think that's not a bad touch there. And then on the tongue is going to be his signature. On the inner side of the upper, it has like a forward facing swoosh, and honestly these remind me a lot of the KD15 model, just because it's pretty much the same setup, but it's more like just flipped on the upper. Like the KD15 has a reverse swoosh on the inner side and then a forward facing swoosh on the outside. But honestly a really clean looking PG6 model. The number 13 is also going to show up on the heel for his jersey number on the Clippers, obviously. So I mean, I am a fan of that. But now taking a look at the Adidas Dame 8, they did trade in the wing setup that was on the midsole for the Dame 7s. Now you have more of a curved look in that same spot. And this is like going to have a clear color break in the middle of the shoe where it goes from like purple to yellow. And that's also going to be a material change that happens right there, but I'm going to get into that more in just a second. But the tongue setup is definitely a little bit different. Like it's mostly just blank with a pull tab off to the corner that's going to have Dame's logo on it. And not a lot of pull tabs kind of show up on the tongue. I mean, the Curry 9s had a pull tab there, but it's definitely not common. And it's even more uncommon to have a pull tab show up on the inner side of the upper where that fourth quarter KO branding is at. So no pull tab on the heel, but they have one like everywhere else. It's just kind of funny to me. But on the heel you are going to get some Dame text with like a cool glitch font. So it's honestly two pretty clean models. But now let's go ahead and see how they hold up on the board. So now I'll break down more of the tech specs and just kind of talk about the performance side for each of these shoes. So starting off with the cushioning, I'm just going to lay out the cushioning setup for both of these models first. The PG6 did move off of last year's design, and they're now using Nike React technology in the midsole, and that's just a lightweight and durable foam that's meant to deliver a soft and responsive feel. In the Dame 8, they also went away from last year's light strike cushioning, and these have a dual density Bounce Pro cushioning setup that is designed to give you the perfect ratio of energy return, cushioning, and support. So that's kind of how Nike and Adidas kind of puts it out there. And for me, I mean, the PG5s from last year was actually one of my favorite shoes to hoop in, or that I've played in. They had some like memory foam on the memory foam that was in there that just made them feel like a pillow right from the jump. The PG6 feels nice, but it's just not quite as soft on this year's model from what I felt. But the Dame 8, honestly, it feels about the same, or maybe even a little bit better than the Dame 7s. I still feel like they're going to be a shade behind the PG6. I mean, both cushioning setups are pretty balanced though, but I mean, on the court, I do feel some better impact protection on the PG6 shoe. Some of that honestly may be because the collar on these, like just the sock liner feels a little bit more comfortable than the Dame 8s. It's really padded on this PG6 model. And then using our durometer to check the stiffness of the midsole, the PG6 was reading at a 33.5. That's a little bit on the softer side than just like the average basketball shoe from what I've tested. Not by a lot, but it is a little softer. I mean, the Dame 8s were pretty heavy on the overside, measuring at like a 51, and that doesn't tell the whole story of how the cushioning is going to play, but it is just a tool that we like to use to kind of compare how these things feel. But I mean, definitely the cushioning is going to be pretty close between these models, but I do lean the PG6 just a little bit. Now looking at the materials and the support, the PG6 is going to get a mesh upper that does help keep these really breathable and lightweight, and you're also going to have some no-sew overlays kind of on top of that. And it's tough to see on this colorway. I mean, probably should have gone with something other than all black, but the toe is a different texture than the middle portion of the shoe. And then around the heel is going to be, or like around the heel and like the ankle, it's going to give you more of a plush-like feel. I mean, these are $110, so they don't feel cheap, but they also don't really have anything premium going on. But as for the support, the PG6 did have the PG5 had an outrigger just to help kind of brace your foot and keep it in the shoe. I mean, the PG6 did lose that, but there are some forefoot straps kind of integrated with the lacing system to give you a nice and secure feel. Like these have played really good for me so far. I haven't had any issues keeping my foot in them, like just keeping my foot stable in the model. But now to switch it over to the Dame 8, textiles are going to make up like the tongue and the toe area for this upper. And again, that is going to help with ventilation to your foot. And like I said in the appearance section, these get kind of broken up where that purple meets the yellow. It's going to go from like a mesh feel in the front front, like with having some holes in there, just to being more filled in along that bag side. But something cool about this Dame 8 model is that 25% of the components used to make up the upper are going to contain a minimum of 50% recycled content. And honestly, I really just love that concept. Like the Nike Cosmic Unity is a line with Nike that I did just like review that had like the same idea going on where they use that recycled content. But as for the support, I mean, Adidas didn't really add anything to this shoe to help, like such as the midfoot straps, outrigger, overlays like for the laces to feed through. I guess you are going to have that like Achilles pillow in the heel that I haven't mentioned yet, but that's more so because I didn't like really notice it was there while I was playing in these, like having it help or hurt me. But even with that though, all that stuff, I mean, I have not struggled with this section at all for support. Like no movement on the upper whenever I'm making hard cuts or anything like that. And that does check out because I've honestly never struggled with Dame's line or PGs as far as like the support goes. But looking at the weight, the PG6 is going to be the lighter shoe today, weighing 392 grams for a size 10.5. That is going to be well below the average for like a low top. Well, I mean, actually, that's probably right around the average for a low top shoe, but it's definitely not going to be heavy. And the Dame 8 is going to be more of a mid top design, if you want to call it that. And those are going to weigh more at 440 grams for the same size. So it's a little bit of a weight difference here. It's not super noticeable on the court, to be honest. Like I can only really draw it out if I have these models in my hands. So honestly, the takeaway here is that neither shoe feels heavy, and that's what you want. To finish off with traction, this is another spot where both shoes went with a whole new setup. The PG6 has a rubber outsole that's meant to provide multi-directional coverage just to help you stay in control. And you can see that these have some circles and some lines kind of built into the pattern, but just like last year's model, they are going to play great. They definitely do give you some nice bite on the court. And then for the Dame 8s, these are going to have a rubber outsole too, but you are going to have some like wavy lines kind of running horizontally with some indents in the middle of the shoe. And I want to say these are right on par with the Dame 7s, maybe slightly better, but they just don't have quite as much bite as the PG6 have had. I mean, full transparency, I can't really think of an Adidas basketball shoe line that is like has a good performing traction line year in and year out. Like from the Don issue to like the Trae Young, the Hardens, I haven't really been overly impressed. Actually, I do like the D-Rose on a shy. Those do play pretty nice. Now that I think about it, it's a pretty sticky model. But I mean, other than that, I mean, Adidas normally doesn't keep pace with Nike for traction. But you are going to have a durable rubber outsole on both models. And with the cheaper price, definitely some good outdoor candidates to hoop in. But to finish off with sizing, I did go true to size on both. And the PG6 is going to give you a little more room left over in the length. I'd say the Dame 8 is going to be slightly wider. It is somewhat of a narrow feel on the PG6. So for the final ratings and starting off with the appearance, I don't dislike the Dame 8s, but I just really love the reverse swoosh on the PG6, so I'm going to start off going that way. And as for the cushioning, I mean, the PG6, it isn't quite as soft as the 5s, but I don't think the Dame 8, I mean, the Dame 8s are a little bit softer than the 7s, but I mean, just overall, the PG6 has felt slightly better to play in, so I'm going to go with PG's line again. And as for the materials, I mean, same price range, you get a mesh upper on both. Neither shoe feels high priced or cheap, so I'm just going to go with the tie there. Then looking at the support, you're going to have that midfoot band on the PG6. There's nothing really major on the Dame 8s. I mean, I guess they did toss on that Achilles pillow, but regardless, neither shoe did struggle with the support section, so I'm going to come back to a tie here. But to finish off with traction, the PG6 does grip the floor a little bit better, so I'm going to go that way. Like, the Dame 8, it feels good. That's about all it feels. Just not quite as consistent or sticky. So that is going to lead to me going with the Nike PG6 as the better shoe to hoop in. The cushion isn't quite as soft on this year's model, but I mean, you're going to get the same lightweight shoe that plays well for both indoor and outdoor purposes. The Dame 8 is still a really solid performer though, don't get me wrong. But I would like to see the Dame 8 just, the traction improve a little bit more. The cushion is heading in a nice direction. And between these two models, I mean, honestly, I'd probably go with the Dame 8 if we're talking about outdoors. The grooves just feel a little bit more sturdy and just durable, and the cushioning is more than good enough to have you covered on a harder surface. Thank you guys for taking some time to watch. Feel free to drop a follow or subscribe if this is your first time checking us out, or if you liked the video, we would of course appreciate that. If you're interested in buying the Nike PG6 and you want to support our channel, just click the link that we have here on screen, or we have links for both shoes down below or in our bio, so feel free to check that out. But until next review, I'm Landon from Shoewear. Peace.